What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency Podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. My name's Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York. I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald, founder of Sound Harbor Insurance in Long Island, New York. Ladies and gentlemen, this show is brought to you by HawkSoft, your family-owned and operated agency management system serving independent agencies with teams from 1 to 300 plus employees. John, an agency owner from New York, says that he likes HawkSoft because of their willingness to listen to agents, adapt to their platform needs. I can attest that as a user. Mr. Fitzgerald, how are we doing today, sir, down there?
We're doing awesome. We're doing awesome, man. I'm ready to get this conversation kickstarted, and I have a couple questions for Rushang, so I'm excited to get this one going.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are very thankful to have Rushang Shah on the podcast. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for HawkSoft. Rushang, thank you for taking the time to join us. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for doing this. Steve and Sean, I appreciate the conversations you have on this podcast. They're much needed, and it's a great venue to share kind of a piece of our mind about the wonderful industry we're in. So thank you for doing this, and happy to be here.
Absolutely. Let's talk before. I know we got some specific topics that we want to hit about AMSs, about getting started in the space and all that, but talk to us a little bit about yourself. How long you've been in the industry? What led you to where you are today with HawkSoft?
Absolutely. I've been in the insurance industry for about 11, going on 12 years now. So not quite the legacy that I know some of you have with decades and generations. But I've learned a lot since that, start date. And I come from a very different orthogonal industry. Not even, in, you would say, the mecca of insurance. So grew up in San Francisco and came from the mobile device space when that was taking off and on fire. It was the bleeding edge technology. And, everything from the old school Palm devices. Some of you, the older audience on this podcast, could probably remember the Palm Pilots. We rode that wave, the evolution to BlackBerry, Windows Mobile, iPhone came along, changed the game, and Android, and then we made an exit. So going from a bleeding edge industry, I was really looking to transition to an industry where I could take everything that I learned about technology and apply it to an industry that was on its heels from a technology adoption curve standpoint, which, 10, 12 years ago, insurance definitely was. If you pause for a second, we don't realize these terms that we're using today, like API integrations, InsurTech stack, did not exist in this industry 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like the concept of APIs and the concept of building and customizing your insurance stack really came about in like the last 4 to 5 years. And so we've, in my opinion, in the last 10 years that I've been in this industry, it has leaped forward dramatically compared to the previous 10, 1,500 years. So happy to be in it, but that's my story. And I love the industry because it's all about relationships, which is really what connects you and I.
Super cool.
Where do you see the just to spin off what you said there? What's your outlook on the agency management system space with like how fast technology is moving?
Yeah, I think it's changing a lot. And I think a lot of that is driven by the demographics and psychographics of who's running an insurance agency nowadays. Look at the three of us. I'd like to consider myself young, but more pointedly, look at you guys. Our modern insurance agency owner is a little bit younger than what they were in the past. And we're on the precipice of that change where the next generation is beginning to take over. And what we have to be sensitive to in that is the current generation, the younger insurance agency owner and the decision makers at the agency, they grew up in an era where things like software, cloud-based services, so software transitioning to the cloud, CRM, sales relationship, building a strong core relationship with your insured before they even sign the dotted line. That concept is a world that this generation grew up in. You go back 30, 40 years, the bread and butter was all servicing the policy. That's what the agent was focused on. But today we have insurance agency owners that are coming in with a clear understanding of what customer relationship means outside of just servicing. And so that's beginning to manifest itself in the needs of that agency owner. So case in point, the AMS of the past, you go back far enough, a lot of the agency management systems got started as bookkeeping systems. So they were financial and accounting systems. HawkSoft came along on the scene in the mid 90s, and we were rethinking that, saying, they're doing a great job with the finances and accounting, trust accounting, things like that. But what about the workflows, the everyday processes that an agent goes through? From a productivity standpoint, can we revolutionize the game? So HawkSoft, our system is really designed to build on the agency's workflows. So I'm getting a phone call, and this is what they're talking. They're talking about a claims. If you look at our action menu, it's designed to follow that logic. So that was the evolution for the management system. Now we're having users are demanding the CRM functions, the automated communications functions. And I think now the challenge for this era, in my opinion, is can we automate the tedious tasks so that we get time to focus on what's always mattered, which is the relationships and the connection, the connective tissue between the agency and their policyholder. So I think that's the management system has effectively, in my mind, over the last 50 years, evolved from finance to automation and relationships.
Yeah, it's no secret. Everyone knows I've been a HawkSoft user for 6+ years in my prior agency, and this what I love is what something you just said about adapting to that. And if we are in the HawkSoft user groups on Facebook, anybody who recommends an agency management system, anytime HawkSoft comes up, it's that you guys listen and you guys adapt to what the agent, what the user are looking for. I want to share something and just hear your response to it. I think with all this InsurTech, and you talked about, 5-10 years ago, it wasn't even a thing, and this system and that system, now as agency owners, we're getting overwhelmed with, this system does this and this does that. And next thing you know, you got 20 tech stack things. I think it's an interesting conversation around everybody wants one magical system that'll do everything perfectly. Right? Everybody wants one login that'll do this, and this. What I like about in my 6+ years of experience with HawkSoft is you guys know what you're good at and focus on that. And I would much rather have my agency management system that's really good at doing this, and I know this is what they're for, and my other systems that can backfill, rather than one big system that promises everything that's giving me half of what I need across the board. Does that make sense?
100% agree. It's really a philosophical question at the highest level, the C-suite, of who do we want to be as an agency management system? And, what's our trajectory for product development in the future? We've always, there's a really interesting quote. It's from Steve Jobs. It stuck with me a long time ago when I was in the Bay Area. And I'm paraphrasing, but he effectively said, we tend to celebrate the yes decisions we make, whether that's in life or whether that's, in a company with a product. Yes, we want to add this feature. Yes, we want to do that with this product. We want to evolve it this way. But we should pause and celebrate the no decisions we make just as much as the yeses. And because it's through those no's that we're able to decipher what it is we actually want the product to be. We don't want it to do this. We don't want it to do that. But we want to hit a home run when we do these 5 things. And so that philosophy really stuck with me. It's something that we on the HawkSoft executive team and the board, we talk about a lot. Who are we and what do we want to be as a management system? We decided a long time ago that we can't do everything. And if we tried, it'd be a very shallow pond. And so we were one of the first to really open up the API ecosystem to plug in. And this is really, to answer your earlier question, what's the expectation and where our AMS is going? They're going from a piece of software that you did everything in or tried to do everything in to a platform that's central to everything else that you add to it. So from a software to a platform, and basically the nucleus is your management system. That's where your source of truth is. But because of these API integrations, you're able to build onto that with expert tools on how you want to differentiate your agency. You want a chatbot and you want to automate that part so you have free time for something else. Well, guess what? There's a world-class solution to add on to that source of truth management system to do that really, really well. So to your point, Stephen, we're not trying to do everything. And we know what our swim lanes are. Those swim lanes, that's not to say they aren't expanding. There's more and more that when an agent says, I want this in my management system by default baked in, not something I can add on, that that is expanding as well. So it's not a static discussion. So we're always having to expand. Text messaging being a great one, right? Like back in the day, no one would want that in a management system. Nowadays, that's just part of communications. Like we want that baked in. And if we're going to do fancy things with texting, there are wonderful solutions out there that we will never touch their feature set that you can add on to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. Like as a system and as a software developer, we need to clearly define what our lanes are and hit a home run in that. So then that allows you guys to add who you need to the tech stack.
You know, Sean, what I love about that is it's a complete parallel to what we talk about with being a Scratch agent. We talk about focusing on a niche, personal lines versus commercial out of the gate, and how it could be easy to want to chase every product and every service that we can offer and this and that from the get-go because we're looking at revenue versus becoming an expert in this, focusing on this, being the go-to for this, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I think that's just an interesting parallel that I like.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take it to the other parallel now. So, Rushang, where do you see, or do you see AI playing a role in the agency management space at all? And if so, like, I'm just curious what you think the two together could do.
Yeah, it's a great question and one we think about and talk about a lot at HawkSoft. My honest answer is we're still trying to see through the fog. I think there's a lot of tremendous things that AI has given us a taste of what it could do. The game is changing so fast in AI to some degree it's hard to understand what's going on. So we've been having some really deep conversations with agents, our customer base, about what their expectations are from a management system, just like the parallel we're talking about CRM and automation and things like that. Those became expectations of the system, but going forward from an AI perspective, what that expectation is. And our take is that they're still trying to feel their way through. This has impacted our roadmap. So very specifically to HawkSoft, we have taken a bit of a, not a pause, but we're slow walking the AI innovation, product innovation to see what actually sticks. There's a lot of vanity features out there. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of features that, in my opinion, are not really AI, but they're branded and labeled as AI. But what they really are is automation. And so there's, you go talk to some of these companies and they're not really using an LLM. They just rebranded their automation as AI. So we're trying to see through that fog to see what sticks. But one thing I think is becoming more clear by the day, is the natural language interface, the ability to say something naturally to AI and have it run all these tasks and give you a result is going to be mainstay for the future.
My thought, like, I was just thinking this the other day, and it's like, I don't know how possible it is yet or not, but like, my thought is like, how Google has Gemini, Microsoft has Copilot, maybe HawkSoft had their own internal AI that you could have a conversation with, like, hey, could you run an analysis of my book and tell me what cross-selling opportunities are available? And because it's a large language model, boom, oh yeah, run a home-only list because we see a lot of monoline. And then, hey, could you build me some scripts, sales scripts around blah, blah. And it's like, just a conversational model built into the AMS. I just think
100%. 100%. Those are the conversations we're having, because as we're realizing that natural language interaction with your management system is going to be mainstay. You think about it right now, like most management systems, including ours, has a search box, but that search box in the modern era is limited to querying clients and finding the client file.
100%.
But what you're really asking for is one search box to rule them all. And that is whether I'm looking for a client or whether I want you to run a report, which right now I've got to go do myself and then slice and dice the data. I just want the ability to tell it what I want and have it go find the report, it slice the data, it segment it based on what I told it, and give me back a result. That's the direction I think we're going in, instead of this fragmented approach.
How many active policies do I have at my agency right now? Like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, man, how freaking easy would that make it?
100%. And I think what it's going to do is revolutionize insights that agencies today are never getting because they don't know how to pull some of that data or the reports or slice the reports. We're not data engineers. We're people that are really good at relationships. And so things like, how many times has this policyholder that I have that has not only home and auto, but a business lines policy, how many times have I reached out to them, or have they reached out to me in the last year? Like, I just want to tell my management system that and have it give me a list and say, here's the last time. And now I can assign that to Susie CSR or my producer and say, we need to touch base and just see how their business is going. Outside of insurance, is there anything that we can lean on our network as insurance agents, our network in the community, to help them as a business? Mm-hmm. These are insights that we're not getting right now, or no one's pulling. And I think it just, the friction goes away to getting that type of insight and taking action on it.
Rushang, I don't mean to try to pull a string here, but if you could come up with something that just says, hey, HawkSoft, could you complete all my tasks for today? And that'd be great. I just have to do that once a day. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to just put that at the top of the list, we'll
hey, man, you and I'd be in a different business right now if that were the case.
I'm just, that's coming down the pipe. We don't have to release it yet. Just give me a call. I'm happy to pilot that one for you. I want to talk about something, and I want you just to explain to us and the listeners about what makes HawkSoft different. And I want to just share an experience. Sean and I are in all these agency owner groups on Facebook, right? And they got hundreds, thousands of people. And the question always comes up, what AMS system are you using? What's best for me to use? And we talk a million times in this podcast, almost doing this for 3.5 years now, Sean, about it depends on your agency, all this. And that's what I've shared my story, I think even 5 episodes ago or so, about an experience where I almost left HawkSoft for something that was a shiny object, and thank God I didn't. And it was someone on your team that nicely pointed something out to me. I say this all to say, I'll never forget this. On one of these posts, I saw someone asking about a management system, and someone mentioned HawkSoft, and someone commented something along the lines of, well, they're just a small family-owned company. I want a big company that can grow with me as I grow bigger, right? It just stuck with me because yes, they're a small family-owned company, which in my opinion and my thoughts is they listen to me. It's easier for me to talk to Rushang if I have to. It's easier for me to tell them why I need something to be an update or get access to their team and all those things. So with me getting off my high horse and just sharing that story, because I was just sitting here thinking about it, talk to us about what's different and what's coming down the pipe for HawkSoft.
Yeah, there's a lot to that family owned. And I think to that, what I would add is we're privately owned as well. So not only was it started by a family, and they're still very, very involved in the decisions of HawkSoft. So it's all within the family. But we also have made a very strategic decision a long time ago not to get outside funding, not to get equity funding, because that there's no right or wrong, in my opinion.
Sure.
You can grow a company in N+1 ways, but it's about the trade-offs you're willing to make when you make that decision. And to us, what was most important to us is that we maintain a level of control and we maintain accountability to just 2 stakeholders, our customers and our employees. And the story we've seen often play out is when you do get outside funding, you're adding at least one more stakeholder, if not many more down the road. And so that's, again, not the right decision for everyone, but for us, that was the right decision. We are very happy with that decision. And I think it's allowed us to do things that are a little bit unique, such as what you're referring to, Stephen. We can wake up and say, we want our strategy to just focus on these 2 things, and we don't have to get approval from anyone else. That's the direction we're going to go in. And it has been a wonderful trade-off for us, because what it does is effectively attracts the agencies that value that, like you're saying, Stephen, and the agencies that say, I want to be able to work with a company where the CEO and I wear our pants the same way, and I can reach out to him. I want to be able to work for a company where I can put a suggestion in and see that they launched that in 2 release cycles. Right. And so it's again, not right or wrong. It's just the path that we chose. And that, to me, is what makes HawkSoft different in the market is, I know it becomes cliche to say we're heavily focused on service, even in the insurance world, not just software world. Everyone says that. But when you feel it, when you have your customers talking about the difference, that I picked up the phone at 4:49, 4:50, on a Friday evening, and someone picked up the phone in 2 rings. That's our dedication to service. Or, I had such a wonderful, wholesome conversation with someone at HawkSoft support they're still working to solve my problem. But man, did that conversation feel well? Like they were so vested, and then they'll come back and call you back to make sure your problem got solved, or did that solution we gave you, is it still working? We can't go down that road of offering that type of differentiation in service unless we made those decisions early on to be a privately held company and focus on our customers. So we look at our community, our customer community, as family. They have helped us more than you think to get the platform where it's at today. And our roadmap, we always joke around about this, and we're actually about to send out a roadmap survey to every single user that uses HawkSoft. Our roadmap is driven by our customers. And there have been years where we had our top 3 priorities on the roadmap, and we saw something else, the customers wanted something else, and we pivoted and made that the top priority.
I just got to share this, and I can tell Sean has a different question, but I just got to share this quick. I've been a HawkSoft fan for as long as I've used it, and the reason I'm so passionate about sharing my experience is because I've seen and heard, especially with the relationships through this podcast and the relationships that we've been blessed to make through this podcast, of the nightmare stories of people not knowing what direction to go to, and they get in contracts or they have bad service experience or whatever. I just want to share, and I think I already shared this a couple episodes ago, but one of the coolest experiences for me was a few months ago. I went down to Long Island. It was a plus that Sean bought me dinner when I was down there, but it was one of the HawkSoft meetups. And with the amount of agents that you have across the country, there was maybe 30 of us in the room, right? It was a regional meetup, but there wasn't 200 people there. And there was the CEO of the company leading the entire day and talking to people. And the sole purpose of that day was users being able to use the platform better. And it baffled me, because he was up there and someone would say, I don't know why we can't do this, why we can't do this. That's a good idea. Hey, Amy, write that down. Write that down. And then, 4 weeks later, hey, that update's out. But it's just, I think that's the biggest thing, because, and we can pivot to talking about this, but with Scratch Agents, man, you can get so, I don't know what the word is. I have a word, but it's probably not appropriate. You got to be cautious, right, of what you're signing up for and the intentions of the company and all of that. And when you look at someone like HawkSoft in the vendor space as far as we talked about with all these different vendors, when you say right now that it's the employees and the customers, which are your agencies, agents and agency owners, there's no truer statement. Rushang, Sean, did you have something? I got one last question here.
You roll because it's a little.
Yeah, because this pivots a little bit into what I was saying. Give us, like, with your space in your position in the tech world with insurance, give us like 3 questions that we should ask a tech company when we're looking to bring them on. If it's a new CRM, if it's a rater, if it's this new AI thing that's going to change our agency, like what's like 3 things that we should always have in the back of our mind when we're looking to sign up with a new vendor for our agency?
Yeah, and that's a tough one, because there's a lot of questions in my mind that you could ask. And I think one of the things we forget is agencies, if they're a scratch agency, they're starting with a clean slate. So I think the questions there are going to be different than an agency that's been around the block and used, a lot of times 3-4 management systems, and they've had bad experiences. So let me discard that latter set, because they're going to come in with these things failed with my last platform, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But let's assume, for the sake of this discussion, a scratch agency. I think one of the most important things that we overlook when we think about the relationships that we have with our policyholders and the tremendous volume of data we collect nowadays is, at the end of the day, I'm building an InsurTech stack over time that's not just the management system, but all these other players. And so as I build all this complexity into my operations, all these different vendors, who actually owns my data, and what does that mean? Well, with the data that's being stored in their systems, what data permissions do they have to do XYZ with my data? So as a scratch agency owner, that may not be the most important thing. Heck, I'm like
You don't have
trying
data.
to figure out
Yeah,
appointments.
right.
I don't have data, right? So but that foundation, like that 1 degree shift is going to impact you so much down the road as you get more and more data, because that's an exponential curve on data. As you get your second client, you've not proportionally increased your data, you've exponentially increased it, and then multiply that by every single policy holder you sign up. So what data sharing permissions does each vendor in my InsurTech stack have? For example, are they simply custodians that hold that data and use it to deliver the service? Or do they profit off of that data in a secondary or tertiary manner? Do they rent out the data? Do they sell it to any data clearing houses, or anything else? What sharing rights exist for that? The second one is, what about data mobility? Back in the day, I come from the mobile world, and we aren't too far away from the time when I could not take my phone number from one carrier to another. We think of it as second nature. I'm going to switch from this wireless carrier to now, and my number goes with me. But there was a time you couldn't. So do you really own your phone number? And the parallel here is, am I with a management system or any other InsurTech partner where I'm locked into a deal, and to leave, I have to pay what we effectively call a ransom fee? Is your data hostage? And and when I decide to leave, am I able to retrieve my own data without paying money for that? Because if I have to pay for it, did I really ever own it?
So, Rushang, talk to me about the downside of quote unquote not owning the data. I know you mentioned you'd have to pay for it. God forbid you wanted to make a change or something. But what's like I don't think that's talked about a lot, is like, what's the actual risk of not owning the data? Like, it's sold to a clearinghouse. Like, just, I don't really fully understand what the real risk is, if that makes sense.
Let's say, Sean, you're using HawkSoft, and let's say HawkSoft did not. We're very strict about data sharing permissions. We use the data to deliver the service, and we don't profit off of it in secondary, tertiary ways. Let's say that wasn't the case. Because you're a customer of HawkSoft and we have your data and we have your policyholder data, we could sell that to a clearinghouse. We could rent that out to a clearinghouse. And now all of a sudden you're hearing from people that you never really had a business relationship with to start with. Now, if our terms didn't clarify those boundaries, that's something we could legally do. And now you're being marketed to with services that you have no idea how you signed up for. And then take that to the next level. What about your policyholders? They're being hit by all these services. And some of those services will pay a top dollar because it's the exact demographic they're looking to target. And they can slice and dice that data and say, I want policyholders that are within this age group, who've got 3 people in the family and they got 3 vehicles. And that's tremendous power to slice and dice data and segment. And so those are the things that these clearinghouses, are known for, is aggregating this source of data and then being able to siphon off depending on how much you're willing to pay. So, the Google AdWords model, where I can choose the keyword I want to rank for and how much I'm willing to pay for that, it becomes an auction. So that's just one example, but that's what's been driving a lot of the marketing engine of the past. And I think our consumers are more sophisticated now to say, wait a second, when something's free, that means I am the product. And you're selling something to maintain your entire apparatus and service. And so I think our consumers are more discerning now of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. We got to wrap this up, but I want to tell one more story. Man, it's a lot of storytelling from Steven on this one. Sorry about that, Sean. I think this is this goes for any tech vendor, really, but I just want to share the story again about when I went to that meetup or regional hug meeting, I think is the official term, right? When I was in Long Island, I was with a separate e-sign platform. And now I'm putting myself on the hot seat. This is a perfect example of 3 years into being a scratch agent. I signed up with this unnamed service, and they're our e-sign platform, and I'm not even thinking about it. We're just selling business. We're doing renewals 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? Not even looking at the bill, completely put myself out there. But then I go to this HawkSoft thing, and I'm sitting there listening, and they're talking about the integrated e-sign thing, and I'm like, it's definitely not the first time I've heard of it. It's the first time I actually heard about it, if that makes sense. But long story short, 25% of my cost, I'm now using the e-sign platform that integrates with HawkSoft. It's much easier. I save 75% of my costs from the other one that I was, and learned that because I was at an event that was helping me better my experience as a user. So I just wanted to share that because like I think that like it all adds up, right? And I'll end with, if you're a scratch agent that is looking to go out on your own, it doesn't matter, HawkSoft, whatever you're looking at, look at the difference. Is it an actual partnership? Look at the contract. Look at everything that we talked about, because to Rushang's point, it may not make a difference now, but in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's sure going to make a difference if you're trying to make a move, or if you have another problem that you have to adapt and you can't, and it's either expensive or you simply can't do it at all. These are real situations that happen. But Rushang, is there anything else you want to add just before we wrap this up here?
No, I appreciate what you guys are doing and opening up conversations that our industry needs. I think we need more of this, and HawkSoft is a extremely proud sponsor of what you guys are doing. So let us know how we can help. We're here to push the independent agent channel forward. We just happen to sell software, but we're in it for the industry, and we're here to help.
So cool. Well, thank you for your new partnership with the sponsorship. We really do greatly appreciate that, and appreciate you taking the time today. Everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. But most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.